Hello and welcome to the Flipping and Wholesaling Houses in New York show. I am Michael Pinter, where I teach you how to start flipping and wholesaling houses, or if you're already doing it, how to grow your business. Now, I want to talk about something that a lot of people do not know about, and it took me a very long time to wrap my head around, and that is called novations. So what are novations, and how can they help you flip or wholesale houses? So novation is a legal term that really means replacement. So what I have done for a big chunk of my real estate investing career has been assignments. So what I do is I get properties under contract, and then I will sometimes assign them to other cash buyers who will then do the work, or half the time I end up closing on them and I do the work myself. Novation is a little different, right? I guess we're going to explain a few things about it. So first thing is, an assignment is the seller is A, they are selling the property to B, which is me, and then I am assigning that contract B to C, right? And the C assignor takes over all of my rights and obligations on the contract. It's, I guess, the simplest form of it. A novation means that C is replacing B, and there's a contract, basically, there's a contract from A to B, and then a new contract which replaces my contract goes from A to C. Right? And then what happens in the middle is I have a novation agreement that explains what I'm doing to the seller, and the seller understands that there's somebody taking my place, and that any overage, right? Any any amount that the new buyer is paying over what I was paying is paid to me. Now, novations have a huge advantage and a huge disadvantage over an assignment. The huge advantage, I don't know when I started this, I'm such a doofus. Okay, the huge advantage is that the end buyer can be a regular buyer and can get a regular mortgage. So let me just backtrack a little bit. I was in the mortgage business for a long time. The way that Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, all these standard lenders, that means any major bank, so Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase, any of those banks, or any mortgage lender that's selling to them in the end, or selling to Fannie. The way it works is the seller must be on title at the time of contract. So an assignment deal almost never, I'm going to say never, someone told me of a case that worked, but I would say never is allowed to be financed by a regular mortgage, which is why we assign to cash buyers, who are going to do the work. And we don't assign contracts to an end user, someone who's going to move in there, because they're going to get a regular mortgage, and they won't get a regular mortgage because technically you are assigning it to them, and technically I'm the seller, and I'm not on title, right? I am just in contract. The way innovation works is, because there's a completely new contract from the seller to the buyer, they can get a regular mortgage. That's a big deal. Oh man, I gotta call this guy back. Okay, sorry. So the huge disadvantage is that all the parties have to agree to everything. So you have to go back to the seller and you have to sign an innovation agreement, which basically says, hey, I'm in contract with you for X. I am now going to take myself out of this contract because you are now going to sign a new contract with Mr. New Buyer for amount Y. And he has to agree. And then, like I said, all the specifics of what happens there are in that. Now, for the seller, so a lot of people ask, why would the seller do that? The answer is, you are the backstop, right? In other words, I had a deal where it was innovation, and the seller asked a great question. The seller said, listen, I'm in contract with you. You have no contingencies, right? You have no mortgage contingency. You have no inspection contingencies, nothing. And now you're asking me to sign a contract that's full of contingencies, right? This guy has a mortgage contingency. This guy's asking for all these things that I don't want to give. Why should I sign it? The answer is because if he can't close, or if there's any costs or problems involved, they all fall on me. I have to pay for any repairs that might be needed, if they're due to an FHA appraisal, for example, or any kind of issue comes up, they all fall on me. If that buyer can't close, I have to close. So, I don't know what's going on here. Somebody's writing some weird comments. Okay, so that is the basics of a novation situation. You are telling the seller, I am there as a backstop, but I want to go out into the market and see if somebody else wants me to do the work. Now, the key is, usually work is going to get done. Sometimes work is going to get done, but the work can get done after the closing, and you don't have to pay closing costs. So what does this mean on deals? I would say, if I would have known about this and been fluent in it, which took me forever, for many years, I would have made a lot more money because I just did something very illegal, because I have turned down dozens, I don't know, maybe 100 deals through the years where the spread was just too tight. So, example, a seller calls you and says, I want $500,000 for this house. And you go there, and the house is in pretty good shape, right? Novations only work if the house is in decent shape. It has to be mortgageable. And I want $500 for the house. And I looked at it, and I'm like, it's a $550 house, easy. But that $50,000 in New York is not enough of a spread to do it, because it'll cost you over $50,000 to buy a $500,000 house. Now you might say, what the hell costs so much money? And I will tell you, it's going to cost you at least $10,000 in closing costs on the purchase, and it's going to eventually cost you $15,000 to $20,000 on the sale, right? Because you're going to have to pay a buyer's agent 2%. So on a $550,000 house, that's $11,000 right there. Then you have all the taxes that were due, right? And if you're borrowing money, there is interest. So it's going to be $50,000, $60,000, right? I talked about a property I did in West Hempstead that I bought for $450,000, and I sold it really 2 months later for $575,000. I did not make $125,000. I probably made about $70,000, which is great. It's a great deal. But there was $70,000 or $60,000 of costs involved in the ones I just told you, right? The purchase closing costs, the sale closing costs, and the holding costs, right? Holding costs aren't just interest. Holding costs are taxes that are going on. Holding costs are utilities you got to pay. Holding costs are landscaping in the spring and the summer, and holding costs are snow removal in the winter, and holding costs are all the utilities which need to be on if you're going to show the property, so you got to pay for electricity, gas, water, all those things. Holding costs are any repairs that show up. Holding costs are cleaning the property out if the property isn't broom clean. These are things that just come up, and they add up. So with the novation, though, the only cost you have, and this is an amazing thing, is the buyer's agent commission if the buyer has an agent. That's it. Because you're not technically closing on the property. The buyer is closing on the property. And you can make the whole difference except for, let's say, 2% to a buyer's agent. So, for an example, so if that guy called me and said there's $500,000, I look and this is a easy, schmeezy, Japanesey layup deal at $550 as is, I could have said, listen, I'll pay you $500. You just got to let me go out into the market, find somebody, and then you will then only pay $11,000. So the cost, if there's a $50,000 spread, you can make, $40,000 on it. So this is something that's, I'm sorry, I got a lot of calls and I got to just hit, I'll call them back. So novations are an amazing thing. They are, and I thought, wow, this is big in other parts of the country. It's not big. It's a very recent phenomenon. Somebody came up with it. I believe his name is Eric Brewer in middle of Pennsylvania, York, Pennsylvania. Pretty much came up with this. A guy in Denver did it. We're talking about something that's been going on for maybe 5 to 7 years. That's it. It's new. It's more applicable in New York. Now, most of these guys, what they do is they get a power of attorney from the seller so that they can sort of sign the second contract for them. I'd say that's almost impossible in New York, but if you can, that's amazing. If you can get a power of attorney to run that part of the deal, that would be awesome. But difficult if the seller is represented by an attorney like they are in New York. But it is something that I think could be a game changer for me. Doing one now. Hope to do a bunch of them going forward. Attorneys do kill these deals. The attorney just killed one. That was a perfect deal for me. But because they don't understand them. And it's more work for them, right? To negotiate a contract with my attorney. Then they have to negotiate a contract with a new attorney. They don't want to do that. But I told them I'd pay any additional legal fees, but whatever. Doesn't always work. I had an attorneys kill a couple of them. But overall, it allows you to do deals at prices where you couldn't do it before because of costs that you would have had, and now allows you to do more deals and make the spread. It took me a long time to wrap my head around it. I explained it the way I needed to understand it. But I hope this was helpful. If you're interested in all the ways I can help you, go to howtoflipnewyork.com. If you're interested in one-on-one coaching, go to coaching.howtoflipnewyork.com. What else? If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're watching on any media channel, please click the thumbs up. The likes really help my SEO, my search engine optimization. A lot more people have seen my videos lately, so that's great. And please keep the comments coming. I post 5 times a week, so ask any question. It does not have to be about the video you're watching. It can be about anything. I try to get to my comments within a day or two. If it's something simple, I'll just reply with an answer. If it's something that I've handled before in depth, I'll send you a link to a video or videos on it. If something new, I will do a brand new video on it. So thank you very, very much for watching. I really, really appreciate it.